portfolios are the ticket to everything. You need a portfolio to get into a show. You need a portfolio to introduce your work to curators. You need a portfolio to put on a website. You can't do anything unless you have a portfolio. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what you need for a portfolio or how to present a portfolio.
Welcome everybody to our Meet the Mentor with Lisa Solomon. We're super excited to have Lisa as part as our Mastrius community and leading a class, a course with us pretty soon, coming up in February. I will quickly introduce myself. My name is Anna Zanella. I'm a navigator here at Mastrius. So what that means is I help facilitate our mentorship groups and courses that happen here at Mastrius. I lend an extra hand to the mentors and do a little bit of the in between the students, the mentees, and the mentors. I am also the events coordinator for Mastrius, so we organize weekly events, usually on Thursday nights, that talk about different topics on panels, live demos, live critiques, and a bunch of other things. So those are really cool part of our community and what our members can get for free when they have a membership. During the session today, we're going to be talking to Lisa about the course and what she's going to be addressing. I will welcome Lisa.
Thanks.
I will do a little intro on Lisa. I picked some of the things there I found super interesting from her website and all the work she done. I could not put everything in because there's so much there. Lisa Solomon was born in Tucson, Arizona, but has lived most of her life in California. She received a BA in art practice at UC Berkeley and MFA from Mills College. Her work has been shown internationally and in numerous public and private edits in numerous public and private collections. She's inspired by her Hapa heritage. She's half Japanese, half Caucasian. She does mixed media work and revolve discovering her heritage, the notion of domesticity, craft, feminism, and the pursuit of art as science and research. Just like me, she's obsessed with color and color theory and is drawn to found objects, tending to alter them conceptually so that their meanings and original uses or intents are repurposed. She's an author and educator, and I have some of her books. In '99, her book, A Field Guide to Color, a watercolor workbook, and all about color, was published by Bruce Books, and it became quickly the first #1 watercolor book at Amazon, and then it was followed by a color meditation deck, which is also really, really cool. 2021,
I feel like I should show them.
A pandemic. Oh yes, please do. Field Guide to Watercolor and the meditation.
There we go.
Color meditation deck, like really, really cool. And I just wanted to highlight one more. 2021, she did a writing project, Crayola, a visual history of the world's most famous crayons. It was published in 2021. Yeah, really, really awesome. Visit her website. Actually, we're going to be looking a little bit at her website to get a glimpse of her extensive portfolio and achievements. Here at Mastrius, we're proud and lucky to have Lisa as one of our mentors. And I'm definitely looking forward to the course where we'll be talking about creating portfolios, writing statements, and so on and so forth. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. Wow, that was very nice. Hi, we have somebody else here too.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
Hi.
I am already on the edge of my seat. The color meditation, that just two words that, oh, give me goosebumps.
Right?
Yeah, it's something that I accidentally discovered because I'm the world's worst meditator. Like I can't, I wish I could meditate. I think I should meditate, but I can't meditate. And then I discovered that while I'm painting, if I paint in a certain way, it feels a lot like meditation. And so in the book, A Field Guide to Color, in between each chapter, so we do like some scientific color theory study, practice color mixing stuff. And then we do a color meditation in between each chapter because I felt like that was a nice break and I wanted other people to experience this practice too. When I had done some workshops locally and I worked with some teens for a summer, and color meditation seemed to really resonate with people a lot, and it made a lot of sense. And so I put it in between each chapter, and then it became this thing. Like it grew and grew and grew, and people were doing them all the time. And then people were like, I want more prompts, because there were 15 prompts in the book. And I was like, okay, can I think of more prompts? So I
Right.
came up with 52 prompts and then 10 parameters, and that became the deck, the color meditation deck, which you can use because it's hard even for those of us who are I'm pretty disciplined and I work really well on my own, but it's hard to come up with things to do all the time. So this, at least, it's like a tarot deck. You can pull a card and do what it tells you, and you don't have to think about it, and hopefully it kind of like starts your studio day or gets you in the right frame of mind in order to work. So I'm really happy that the practice has resonated with so many other people, and it seems to be doing for them what it does for me, which is huge.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
Yeah.
So, we should talk a little bit about your experience and, the reasons why you're teaching this class, what we're going to be talking about, and so on. So,
Yeah, so I developed a really rigorous semester-long professional practice class for college students, and I taught it for many, 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 many years. And part of the reason why I felt it was important was because I never had a class like that when I was an undergrad, or even in grad school, where we talked a little bit about kind of etiquette and best practices and how to meet gallerists and curators. It just felt like a lot of that information is kind of, hidden or gatekeeped. So it's like you have to have the right people to talk to, or you have to have a group of friends that have had some experience that you can lean on. But it just seems like a lot of the information is not well publicized, and it's not that it's hard to find answers to these questions, but it just seems like there isn't a lot of like logical like information. Like, here's some things that you should know in order to like move on with your career.
mhm.
Um, and I think part of it is, competition. Sometimes people don't want to share information, or they feel like, if I give away this slice of pie, it's less pie for me. I am one of those people who believes that you can just make smaller slices of pie and that everyone should have some pie and it doesn't matter. Like, I
Right.
don't need the giant piece of pie. Um, so I like to share information, and I started out sort of my art world experience when I was an undergrad. I did a couple of internships at some local gallery spaces, kind of high-end gallery spaces, and it was really eye-opening just in terms of the conversations that were happening and the artists I got to meet. Like, I got to meet Andy Goldsworthy, which was amazing. I got to meet Andy Goldsworthy's parents, which was amazing. So just kind of like seeing the behind the scenes, like what an installation looks like and what kind of information you have to provide for a gallery and how a gallery runs its day to day. Because I think sometimes artists are like, why do galleries get 50% of any sales that happen? And just being in a space and watching what happened, I fully was like, oh, I get why they get 50%. Like, I'm not getting paid. I'm an intern and I'm doing all of this work. And like, yes, like the rent is expensive. The promotion they're doing is expensive. The stuff that they are handling is stuff that artists sometimes don't want to do. So it was an eye-opening experience. And then once I graduated with my undergraduate degree, I decided I thought I would want to work in galleries. So I worked at one of the oldest contemporary galleries in San Francisco, Bronstein Key. She was the first woman to open a gallery. She really pushed the boundaries in terms of materials, like showed ceramics really early on before ceramics was considered like fine art. So that was really inspiring. And again, I got to like meet a bunch of artists and see how they lived their lives, because it was kind of a mystery. Like, you know, even people who sell their work need a day job, you know? So like trying to see how different artists, like, there were some artists who didn't need a day job anymore, who were like, really high, up in their career and have been working for a really long time. And then there were a bunch of artists who did have a day job, and, what kind of studios did they have, and where was their studio, and was it separate from their house, or was it in their house, or, just kind of like being able to experience and learn from all these artists who had, working careers and were really, I admired them, and they were, levels above what I was doing, in my 20s. So I worked at galleries for, I think it was about 5 years. And then I decided I didn't think I wanted to be a gallerist for the rest of my life, that I really indeed was an artist. And that even though I really enjoyed facilitating sales of artists' work and meeting collectors, and I didn't want to be so front facing. So I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. So I went to graduate school and got my MFA, which was incredible and challenging, and all the things that they tell you that grad school is like, probably true to some degree. And then I was fortunate enough to go right into teaching. So it can be hard to get a teaching job at the college level, but as soon as I graduated, I got my first summer school teaching job at UC Berkeley, my alma mater. And then it just kind of snowballed, and I have been teaching ever since, which is 20 plus years of
Yeah.
teaching now. College. And I have done it at private and public institutions. So I have seen all different kinds of students and all different levels of their sort of engagement with their practice. Freshmen, older students. I have done workshops around the world, teaching all different kinds of materials, and then also this professional practice class. So yeah, I developed this class. It was a semester-long class. I then developed like a kind of 15 chapter version of it, and then I also developed a 2-night version of it. So I would teach it locally at different places here, and over 2 nights we would kind of discuss some really meaty things that I felt were really important. And so I'm super excited to kind of extend that. This is a 4-night version, which I think will allow for a little bit more personal exploration. Like, we'll have time to workshop, so class participants can bring their materials to class, and we can go through what they're working on and how to kind of fit into all these different niches. And I can also hopefully answer like really specific questions. So I used to do that in the local workshop too. Like the first night we would go over some really like nuts and bolts stuff. And then I would say, so next class, I would like to discuss things that you want to talk about. So sometimes it would be workshopping a couple of artist statements. Sometimes it would be talking about social media. Sometimes it would be talking about website development. It was kind of really class driven. So I'm excited to bring that into this format too, so that participants can be like, I want to talk about this. And hopefully we can make enough time to cover all the stuff that people want to talk about.
Right. And just so people know, so we are scheduled for 4 Thursday nights, February 22nd, February 29, March 7, March 14th, 6 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 to 7 Pacific Time.
That's me.
And 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. The classes are recorded, and then you can watch them after. And after the last class, they stay up for 1 month for you to watch. And so on. Is really great to join live, so you can ask your own questions and bring your needs and your ideas to the class. So Lisa and I met while ago, and we talked a little bit about how to structure like in the 4 nights, right? So I think what we were talking about is on the first class, we'll talk about the portfolio development, body, what is it, creating a body of work, how cohesive it is, how do you put it together. You have worked in all these different pieces and different things you created, and so now how do you put it together to present it to a gallery, or you're applying for a show, or you're going into grad school or school and so on, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how?
Yeah, I mean, portfolios are the ticket to everything. You need a portfolio to get into a show, you need a portfolio to introduce your work to curators, you need a portfolio to put on a website. You can't do anything unless you have a portfolio. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what you need for a portfolio or how to present a portfolio. And in all of my experience, when I was working at galleries, like I was part of a team that helped pick the artists that we were going to put into exhibitions. When I was in grad school, I was behind the scenes organizing the MFA applications, and I sat in on MFA applications. So I was in the room while people were being chosen. I've been a juror for exhibitions, so I've looked at people's submissions and helped to decide what was going to get in a show and what wasn't going to get in a show. So I have a lot of kind of background in what it means to have a portfolio and how you want to think about putting a portfolio together. And it's not a one shop answer. So there are a lot of kind of considerations and, just even thinking about what image you're going to put first. Like maybe you haven't thought about that, but it's really important what you put first. And there's just a lot to consider. And so we will take that first class to kind of really break down what it means to put a portfolio together and how to think about that. And if you're applying for grants or grad school or want to get eyeballs on your work, like your portfolio is the thing that you need more than anything else. You need all these other components too, but your portfolio is really key.
And one of the super cool things that you told me when we met was that you have developed portfolios to some of the masters, right?
Yeah, so I will offer some examples of like artists that hopefully people know. And we will talk about, like if we were this person, how would we create a portfolio? And that is usually really helpful because oftentimes people are like, but this artist has, works all over the place. And it'll be like, yes, but this is how they would make a portfolio if they were applying for something. So it takes it a little bit out of the personal, so it doesn't quite feel like you're putting your own stuff on display, but it makes it really easy to kind of visualize like, okay, this is what I should be thinking about. And almost every time I do this, the portfolios come out a little bit different in terms of order or preference, which I also find fascinating because, it really can depend on your mood or what you're applying for. So we'll talk about, okay, if I was applying for grad school and I was putting this portfolio together, what would be what I want to think about? Or if I'm putting my website together, what kind of portfolios do I want to generate for that? So again, just kind of really thinking about specifically what you need for each instance is really important.
Do you want to tell us which ones of the artists that you talked about before?
So yeah, I mean, I have one for Louise Bourgeois, who's one of my favorite artists of all times. I have one for Picasso. She's really interesting because he's one of those artists who have done like a gazillion different things. I have one for Bryce Martin, who maybe isn't all over the place, but still, I think when you start to look at his work, you start to realize, oh, like some of these go together better than others. And honestly, I'd be happy to put one together for another famous artist if anybody is like, hey, what would you do with blank? Like,
Oh.
let me know and we can put it together.
Right. Right. Oh, that's great. I think that would be a really cool, like, as we see people signing up for the course,
Yeah.
they can bring up and say, hey, if you would, would like to see who would you like to see the portfolio for? And
Yeah.
so we're gonna see examples of that, but we also will wanna give people time to work, like during that first week after the class, after you learn all those things, to work on their own, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
So
the
we want to give you time and then we'll give you some homework so that you can get started on thinking about like your artist statement, which, a lot of times artists are like, I'm a visual artist, not a writer. And then I have to tell them, unfortunately, you also have to be a writer. You don't have to be like, the world's best writer ever. But every curator I talk to, because I teach in college, I'm constantly asking them, like, does the artist statement still matter? And every time they're like, yes, the artist statement still matters. So
right.
I've yet to meet a curator or an arts professional who's like, I don't give a crap about the artist statement. Everybody cares.
Right.
So it's important to be able to communicate. And we will talk about stylistic choices. So there are some people who write really poetically, and that's great. And then there are some people who don't, and that's also fine. Like yours can be very straightforward and very like, this is what I do and this is why I do it. So there will be plenty of examples of all different kinds of statements. To give you an idea of how you want to approach yours. And we'll also go into kind of like resume, bio, CV stuff, like what kind of language is used and why, because some people get confused. Like they're asking me for a bio, is it this or is it this? And it actually could be more than one thing, so you might have to ask more specifically, but there's kind of like a CV version where you put your education and like the exhibitions you've been in, and then there's kind of like a paragraph bio where you talk about yourself. And what you've done and what you've accomplished. And those are all things you should have like tucked away and ready to go. Or if you feel like you're not quite ready to do that, you should have it like you should have a document set up so that as your career starts moving forward, you can just plug in the information. But just kind of knowing like what the categories are and again, like what order they're in and why they're in that order, and kind of like galleries tend to put them in one order, but then if you're applying for grants, you might want to put them in another order, or residencies, you might want to put them in another order. So just kind of thinking about what goes at the top and why, and what you may or may not want to include and why. So
And
just
it's also,
kind of
I
all
guess
those
it's
things.
it's also an exercise of being able to talk about yourself,
Yeah.
and looking back, right? In, whoa, actually, I have accomplished all these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
now they're documented
Yeah.
in CV or on, like
Yeah.
different documents that you can create, and why, and so on. So like I had it on my notes that, so this is kind of the topic for our second day, right? To talk about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And then you have homework again on the second class
Yeah.
to work on, your CV or your artist statement, just coming up with ideas if you're not ready to write, or writing, and so on. For the third day, then we would do a more open
Mhm.
kind of day, right?
Yeah.
Bring back those two homeworks and
Yep.
people can present and talk about it.
Yeah. So
Get
anyone
feedback.
who wants to be really bold and share their portfolios or their artist statements, this is actually one of my favorite parts of this kind of class, is when people are willing to be generous and share. And then usually their portfolios and statements or whatever end up being immensely better, even just by the end of class, from the feedback that they receive, not only from me, but from the other people in the room. So it's a great way. A lot of times, like, when you're an undergrad, you might not quite be ready to do these kinds of exercises, or you might not be fully invested in your practice in the same way. And then once you leave school, you don't have the community, which I think is what's so great about Mastrius, right? Is it's this community of people
Right.
that you can lean on and ask questions and, develop things together. So the idea of like, hey, let's read someone's artist statement and show us your work in conjunction with that. And does this make sense? Or I still have these questions. Like you said that you're interested in space, but I don't see like what kind of space, like outer space or room space, or, get more specific on what kind of space.
Right.
So just having that kind of feedback is super, super helpful. And it's always really enjoyable. And it reminds me of kind of like the magic of critiques in college where people think they're going to be really nervous. I mean, every semester it's like, this is how I run my critique. You're going to stand up and you're going to talk about your work. And everybody's like, oh, I don't want to stand up and talk about my work. But then at the end of the semester, they're like, critiques were my favorite. So it's sort of like the idea of, being willing to share, and then you get this really great feedback that ends up helping a lot. So yeah, that'll be our third day, and I'm super excited because it'll be super great.
Yes, and in learning to talk about your work too, right? Just presenting.
Yeah,
When you have to talk, then you have to think about, then you have things to write about. And
yeah. I mean,
kind of
talking brings clarity and writing brings clarity. All those things, like at some point in your career, you might have to stand in front of a room full of people in a gallery and explain your work, or give a lecture on your work at a college or to somebody else. And all the times you do it is just practice, and it makes you more familiar. And, I remember the first couple times I did it, I had like really specific notes, like, oh, I need to hit on this and this and this. And now when I do it, I don't even really need notes because I've done it so many times. And I know, and the image itself will just trigger what it is that I want to say. But that's just lots and lots of practice. So this will be like our first round of practice for people, or maybe their fifth round of practice. But I'm on like my 500th round of practice.
right. Right. And then, so I had it written down on our notes that for the last class, then we want to, I guess we'll develop a little bit over the 3 classes, what people are interested in learning more and what people are leaning towards and why they created this portfolio and so on. But I had it written down that, we want to talk about how do you work with galleries, art consultants, how do you get your work out there and how to get more eyes on your work? What are the best practices for all these different things?
Yeah.
How do
So
you increase your online presence? And
yeah. So I know like sometimes these classes, people really want to talk about social media and like what's worked and not worked. So I'm happy to delve into that if people are interested. But I also think that a lot of times if you have never worked with a gallery, kind of like what the expectations are, or like timelines for getting things complete, like you cannot finish the work the night before the show is opening. And like there's actually sometimes like, I'm working with a museum right now in Japan, and it's a year away. And, there's things that we already have to like think about in terms of planning. So sometimes there's a really long lead time. So just kind of thinking about all of those things and getting yourself organized. And I have some really good resources in terms of places to look for juried exhibitions, or residencies or open calls. So even just sharing those resources, like, hey, this is where you can look if you, really want a grant. Like, is there a grant out there that you can apply for? Well, here's a place where you can look and see. So I have a list of websites, which I will be combing through and making sure that they are all still live and accurate before
yeah,
I go to class, because, everything changes on the internet.
right, absolutely. Yeah. What else? What else do we want to talk about?
I don't know. Lynn, do you have any questions or things
Well,
that you want
just on the last topic that you brought up, everything has got me excited. But when you're talking about opportunities, is it directly for North America, or is it more American or international?
It's international. So I have different organizations that I check, and there are listings for residencies in France, but you don't have to be French. Like it's all over the place. So
Okay.
I think certainly what I am most familiar with is North America, United States, Canada, stuff. But a lot of the resources that I have are also open and all over the place. So some are like really gender specific or location specific. And I mean, it does take a pretty significant amount of research to find opportunities that fit you. But even just figuring out where to search for those opportunities is like a job. So hopefully I can
Right.
help narrow it down to like, well, maybe you want to start here and
Mhm.
then you can like go from here to other places.
Yeah, and certainly I think if people are already looking at things, right, or they're more interested in working with galleries, or they're looking for open juried shows and so on, we can talk about how do you approach
Mhm.
those specific things, right?
Sure, or even grant writing. Like grant writing is a whole other skill. Like nonprofit institutions have people whose sole job it is to write for grants. So it's like a thing, you know, and I'm fortunate enough that I have experience with all of that. Like I've both, you know, put my work into a juried exhibition. I have been a juror for exhibitions.
Yeah.
I have written for and received grants, you know, I have a lot of experience in all these areas, and I'm happy to share my own experience and then also talk about experience of my friends because we all talk about stuff. So I have other, you know, working artist friends who have shared with me their experiences. So it's like this nice little spider of information that we can cull from.
And you right now you have a gallery that you work with, you're
I
telling me?
do. I work with a gallery in Los Angeles. They're my main gallery. I have also worked with many, many galleries all across the country for certain exhibitions, or some of them I've worked with for art fair situations. So yeah, it really depends. But my main gallery is in Los Angeles.
Cool. Lynn, questions?
No, this just sounds like everything that I've been looking for the beginning of my year. And you're right. It's almost like there's a gatekeeper, and this information is not always easy to find. It's not right easily accessible, even with the internet. So
Yeah, I think it's hard because, you know, it's kind of stuff that just happens behind the scenes. And it's kind of like, it's not like cooking where people want to see you making the bread, right? It's just kind of like everyone on this side just wants the bread to be done and to like look at it and admire it. And you know, and so it's challenging. And again, like there's so many different pathways and ways to do this. So I think that's part of the challenge too. And I think part of the problem is that as an artist, you kind of need to know what it is that you want to go after, right? So like going after a gallery show is different than going after an exhibition in a nonprofit space, is different than trying to get a juried exhibition that might have an award with it, is different than, you know, so it's kind of like the end goal changes a little bit of what you need to do, but there are some things that are just really, everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to have this. And so let's at least start from there, right? Because then you can tailor it to what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, and you also have a lot of experience with teaching, right? So even people that are wanting to go on that direction of teaching workshops or teaching in a school and developing that side of your business as an artist, I think would have, you know, a great way of learning more. And
yeah, I mean, if people want to talk about teaching, I've been teaching for a very long time. I've taught all different levels and ages. Like I taught tiny little kids for a little bit when I was in undergrad, you know, like 3, 4, 5-year-olds. I taught 4th grade students a couple times in summer camps while I was in grad school. I tend to stay away from middle and high schoolers just because
right.
I'm not great with that as a group, but I did do the teens the one summer, and it totally shocked me like how open it was and how great it ended up being. I was super nervous. I'm like, oh my God, teens. But it was fine. It was great.
Yeah.
And you know, college students is kind of my comfort level. I just I like the age range. I like that I get both like really young 18-year-old students and older students. Sometimes I get retired people who are going back to school, and I love that. And then workshops are phenomenal because workshops, like, this is why this is so exciting. Workshops are where people want to be there. Like, it's not like a required class that they have to take in order to graduate, where they're like, so anybody who comes to a workshop really wants to be there. And so I feel like the magic happens a lot faster. So it's like the light bulb moments are immediate. People are armed with questions like, I want to know this. Like, tell me about this. And so that's always really exciting. It's not like pulling teeth. But yeah, I've done all kinds of workshops all over the place, all different lengths, like ones that you have to travel to, ones that are local, ones that are virtual, like all the things. Yeah.
All right. I think, oh my gosh, it's so much that 40 minutes just go like this.
Yeah, we're done, right? Nobody wants to hear us anymore.
Well, could you just, for me, because I came in a little bit late, tell me the name of the class that you're teaching? And
What did we name it, Anna?
Master professional practices.
There we go.
okay,
Learn how to present yourself and your work professionally to the world.
thank you.
We're gonna post the link with the recording as well, so people can go check out the course description, supply list. There's not a lot of things, but notepad, images you're considering putting in your portfolio if you have done writing your artist statement, your CV, and those kinds of things.
And you will also get, like, I've created a PDF, so there will be like actual kind of written instructions about a lot of what we talk about in class. So you won't have to furiously take notes during class. And I'll create a slideshow of the different professional artists, and like it might not be in the order that we end up putting them in, but you'll be able to like reorder them again or practice with them again. So everything will be available for people to use during and after the class.
All right. I'm excited. I'm
Yay!
excited for this class. So February 22nd, 2024, and we'll post the recording. People can watch, people can reach out to Lisa for, with questions and comments and things. And we will see you then.
Thanks.
Thank you. It has been wonderful.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
guys.
coming.